it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts. A lot of people have been saying in the comments that they really want to see more steel stuff as opposed to the aluminum, because a lot of people are doing hot rods, and a lot of the hot rods are steel, a lot of the restoration work is steel, so they want to see some steel work. So I figured let's break it up a little bit with some steel welding tonight, and instead of just taking flat coupons that are shear in the shear and welding those together, I went and found an old panel that was made at one of the classes, and I think this is 18 gauge. It's pretty thick. It's hard to measure the curved stuff, but on the edge it measures 18 gauge here, so I'm pretty sure it's 18. So what my intent is we're going to do a little bit of comparative TIG welding. I'll try different styles and we'll see what kind of results I can get. We'll try fusion welding, adding rod, we'll do pulse, no pulse, all kinds of different varieties, and then we'll hammer them down with a hammer and dolly, with the planishing hammer, with the power hammer, and then you can see all the potential differences. And maybe we'll throw a MIG weld in there for comparison. A lot of people are still stuck on the MIG weld, and I can see the reason they like the MIG welder, because a lot of times they don't have access to the back side of the panel, and somebody said, hey, maybe you can address that question, and I don't really have a situation like that in the shop right now, but I'm intending to maybe have something like that, and we'll see how we can handle that in a future video. But right now what I'm going to do is we'll cut this panel up. I'm just going to make one cut here, and then we'll cut it later in about 4 or 5 different times, and we'll show that comparison of all the different TIG potentials. So let me go to the saw, and we'll cut this up, and we'll come back and we'll weld it up. Alright, right now I've got the Everlast TIG welder set at 50 amps. And I'm going to just tack this up now. I'll leave this on for 50 amps, and I'm going to do a fusion weld with no pulse. I won't even pulse the pedal. I'll adjust the pedal as needed, but we'll see what kind of results, what kind of penetration we get and all that. All right, so here we go. We're going to tack this up. And I always start in the middle of the panel and I work my way out. That's the way I prefer to do it. Now these are fusion tacks. I have the rod there. If it opens up, I'll give it a little rod. Now, TIG tacks in steel are a lot stronger than TIG tacks in aluminum. These little fusion tacks, a few of them I had to add a little rod, but most of them have been fusion. If the joint is super tight like that, it will just fuse right up. And then after we're done, we're going to just throw it in the planishing hammer and make sure it gets leveled. Being leveled is super important. Now this is a nice feature of a TIG welder, is that when you have a weld right at the end, you've got so much control. You can easily do that weld right at the end without melting it all away. And I have 2% lanthanated tungsten. 3/32 diameter. That's what I use all the time, aluminum or steel. And I'm using straight argon for the welding gas. On aluminum I use the mix, 50-50 mix. And I use a 2.5 magnification magnifier in my helmet that allows me to see really good. So, look at those tacks. They go all the way through. So that's really strong. The flushness of it is pretty good. It might have jumped a little bit on a few of the spots. We're going to put it in the planishing hammer. We might just, when I put the rod to it, I've added a little material. I just might give it a little light skim there and clean that all up, and then run it in the planishing hammer, and then we'll do the fusion weld. So there's the cleaned edge, and you can see the grind marks are going right across, except for like right here. There's a little bit of a step there and a little bit of step here too. I'll put it in the planishing hammer and see if I can level that. It's not a big deal, but if it's any more than that, it will cause an edge to be shown on the weld. So let's see if I can get that all flat in the planishing hammer. Alright, that feels pretty good. This bottom die here has just a tiny bit of crown in it, and that will strike right in the center of the die, so you bring it through, and that leveled it pretty nicely now. So that's a really strong weld, even though it's just TIG tack, that's it. But you can see there's no distortion, it's super clean deal. In the horizon view, if you look at it, it's all looking really good. Every which way, you rub your hand on it, it's fine. So now we're going to do the fusion. Alright, lowered the amps to 40 amps. I think I'll be a little more confident with the 40 amps. And we'll start over here and go all the way across. We'll see what happens. Now the hardest part of this is keeping your hand steady and also seeing the weld. Now you can see that the penetration came in beautiful. It looks like, well, maybe not. Maybe I got to wire brush that and see. It looks like, you know, it's a little cold right in here. Okay, but it's probably about 90% through. So I'm going to dwell a little longer and probably floorboard it so that we get a really good penetration. Here we go again. Okay, let's see if that improved it. The top side weld looks really good. The underside, yeah, that's better. So floorboarded at 40 amps is doing the trick. A hard part is just seeing the crack because, or the seam, because it's been scratched there with the sander, and it's so tight it's very difficult to see. So this is where the magnifiers really come in handy. Alright, now it's getting a little troublesome here because I can't see this side as well, so I might have to adjust it a little bit. Let's see. Got good penetration there, so the 40 amps is working really nicely. So let's see if I can jack this up just a little bit like that. I think that'll help out. I'm going to have to jack it up a little bit more. I'm having trouble seeing it again. So put this little block of wood in here. Alright, so there's my fusion weld. We'll clean that up with that wire brush and take a really good look at it. Now you see the heat affected zone. I did some starts and stops, so the best welds have this constant narrow heat affected zone. This has a little inlet on every time I started and stopped there, so that would be a cold spot, I guess, right there. So we'll do another one where I won't stop. I'll try to do it constant, but it's kind of difficult because you can't see as you go around the corner. Alright, so the penetration, there's one little spot right there. That's probably where I stopped. That's got a little bit of open to it, but it's not open. If you dig in there a little bit, it's probably 70% penetration or so. That wouldn't have any effect at all on the strength of the panel. Alright, and it's the same thing at the start over here, a couple cold spots here too. So that was adjusting the speed and the amperage. And then also you try to keep the tungsten really close, and you have to do a balancing act. If you go like this, you're gonna be going in and out, so you have to have a little guide, and your finger can guide you like this, and you just follow along. But the problem is that your eyesight has to follow along too, so if you can lift the panel up at the same time, that's probably the best deal. I had it sitting on a piece of wood, but maybe the next time I'll try and I'll lift it up like this so I can see it all the way. Without any grinding, because we didn't add any rod, we're going to bring it over to the planishing hammer, and we'll planish this with the planishing hammer. Now it's shrunk a little bit. Every time you put heat to sheet metal, it'll shrink. So we're going to hammer it out, and that'll stretch it back a little bit, and it'll cold forge the material around a little. So some of the material that's on the bottom will come up, and some of the material that's on the top will go down, and hopefully we'll end up with a divot-free surface. But generally I find when I try to do a fusion weld, I will end up with a few little divots. So let's see what we got. Oh, here we go. Alright, and then we'll grind it just a little bit and see what the surface looks like. Alright, I got 80 grit on the stick-it pad, or the hook and loop pad, little foam pad, and I'm going to just go right over it, running with the weld like. Alright, there's our inside. We've got a little divot right there and a couple little micro divots. It looks pretty good. It's nice and flush. There's our top side. We have a couple little micro divots there, micro divot, couple micro divots. So just a little, and then there's a little bit bigger divot here and there. So, but it's beautifully flush. I would put that in the English wheel now and then just work that in a little bit, and it'd be essentially one panel again. So now what we're going to do, you see that result, is we'll try to cut this again, and now we'll do a weld adding rod, and then we'll compare the two head to head. Alright, so I got it all cut, it's all cleaned up, it's clamped, and I'm going to put some tacks in. We don't have to show you the whole tacking process because it's going to be the repeat of what we did before. I might add a little rod because this is going to be a rod weld, so we can compare the rod versus fusion right head to head. So here we go, the couple first tacks. Alright, so that's the second weld now. I did add rod on that. I've cleaned it all up with the wire brush, both sides. I got beautiful penetration, and then ground it and then planished it. It's nice and level. And what I intend to do now is a head-to-head comparison. Is this one, we'll see what kind of results we get by adding a little rod, and I'm going to pulse with my foot pedal from here to here, and then from here to here I'll use the pulse that's built into the machine. Alright, that went pretty sweet. Small bead, pretty consistent. A few times I touched it by mistake, but I didn't pollute the tungsten. We have really nice penetration on the back side. The heat affected zone is a little wider than we had with the fusion, but it's pretty consistent, staying the same width pretty much. So now I'm going to put the pulse on, and we'll do this last section with the pulse. Good. Jack this side up a little bit, and I'll see if I can go like that. I kept it at 40 amps. That seemed to be more than sufficient. So if I had gone higher, I'd probably have to go a little faster. My dwell time would be less. So we're going to turn this on here. We're on DC. Let me check our settings. I'm going to bring this down, and we'll try 2 pulses. Try that. Well, I'm going to have to jack up the amperage. Bring the amperage up to, we'll try 50. There's 50, see if that helps out. There we go. That's a nice even pulse. Looks a little bit different. Not too much different actually. Let's see what kind of penetration we got. We didn't get as much penetration. There's a few spots that might be open there. So actually I think I liked it better with pulsing with my peddle. I think I had a little more control, but both welds are superb welds. They're structurally very sound. The pulse weld's a little cold. We'll clean that up and do a comparison. So I had to go up to 50 amps, and now you can see the heat affected zone was wider on the machine pulse versus the peddle pulse. So there's a little more heat going in, yet we didn't get as much penetration. So again, that might be a dialing in issue. You can dial it in and get an ideal situation. I didn't spend too much time dialing it in. So we're going to clean this up and we'll do a head-to-head comparison. Alright, there's the head-to-head comparison. This is the fusion rod that ended up with very good weld, but some micro divoting here, a little bit bigger right there. And this was with the rod with pulsing the pedal and then the pulse in the machine here. And there's one little tiny divot right there. I might have hesitated or something. But this is generally the way I do all my welds, that after you're done welding, there's no evidence that the panel has been welded. And the heat affected zone, which shrunk a little bit, is been hammered on the planishing hammer to stretch it back out and to blend it. If you rub your hand, there's a little bit of rippling going on. So just a few minutes in the English wheel and that'll all blend in really nicely, and you'll never know that that was welded. The back side, this is the fusion, and we got some opens even on the back side on this one, but not bad. They're probably 80-90% through, so that structurally it's fine. There's never going to be any problem. And it actually is a little cleaner on the back. So I think time is running short right now, so I intended to do a little bit more tonight, but I think that's a good head-to-head comparison. We have a lot of more opportunities here to show some more comparative results. We'll do one next with a copper backing on it and see what that does. And then eventually we'll do one with the MIG, and maybe we'll do some gas welding too, and gas hammer welding. So we'll have the whole spectrum of welding potential here. So I think that's it for now. It's Ray from ProShaper Workshop. Thanks again for all the support we're getting for the channel, and keep it up. And the comments, we always like to see the comments. I try to answer as many comments as possible. And remember, there's 180 videos in the ProShaper YouTube channel homepage. All you're going to do is hit the home, just look under ProShaper. It'll bring you right to the homepage on YouTube, and you got 180 videos there. And some of them are in playlists, or you can just hit the drop-down menu video, and they're all there. So a lot of people just discovering the ProShaper channel probably don't know that all of those are there. So check them all out. Tell your friends. Thanks a lot. It's Ray Chalene. And remember, metal is clay.